the birth of the beast in the ancient cradle of myths, the sun-scorched lands of Crete, where gods mingled with mortals and the sea shimmered with divine secrets. There was born a creature that would haunt human memory for millennia, the Minotaur. Before the beast roared within the labyrinth, before the echo of his hooves thundered in the dark, there was a king, Minos, ruler of Crete, beloved of the gods and feared by men. But even kings are not free from the whims of Olympus. Minos had once begged Poseidon, god of the sea, for a sign of divine favor, a magnificent white bull to prove his right to rule. The god granted his wish, sending forth from the waves a bull so splendid, its hide gleamed like polished ivory. Yet Minos, consumed by greed, refused to sacrifice it as promised. Poseidon's fury was silent but merciless. From the sea's depths came a curse, a dark, unholy desire placed upon Minos' queen, Proserpine. Driven by the god's vengeance, she fell in love with the sacred bull. From this unnatural union was born something that was neither man nor beast, a child of divine punishment and mortal horror. They called him Asterion, but the world would know him only as the Minotaur, the bull of Minos. Born with the body of a man and the head of a bull, Asterion's cries shook the palace. His eyes were fire, his breath, rage. The king, ashamed of his sin and terrified of the god's wrath, sought a way to hide the abomination. Thus, he summoned the greatest mind of the age, Daedalus, the master craftsman, a man whose genius rivaled that of the divine. To him, Minos gave a single command: build me a prison so cunning, so vast, that no one who enters shall ever escape. And so Daedalus built the labyrinth, a maze of endless corridors, turning upon themselves like madness made stone, walls taller than towers, passages that whispered, turned back, yet offered no way out. When the labyrinth was finished, the Minotaur was cast inside. And from that day, the island of Crete carried a secret darker than any shadow. They said you could hear his roars echoing through the rock, a voice of fury, loneliness, and hunger. And when the moon was full, the sound of his hooves would thunder beneath the palace floors. But legends never stay buried. For beyond the seas, across kingdoms, the tale of the half-man half-beast spread like fire. A creature cursed by gods, a monster imprisoned in a man-made hell. The world whispered his name with fear, Minotaurus, and deep within his maze, the beast waited for blood, for vengeance, for freedom. The labyrinth of blood, the moon hung high over Crete, pale and silent, like a watchful eye from Olympus, when the first screams echoed through the labyrinth. From that night on, the Minotaur was no longer a secret. He was a hunger that could not be contained. Locked in the twisting stone corridors, the beast grew, not just in size, but in fury. His muscles hardened like carved rock, his horns sharpened like the blades of war, and his heart turned into a furnace of rage and loneliness. Every day was the same: darkness, silence, the echo of his own breath. And every night, when the torches above the palace flickered, he would press his massive hands against the cold stone walls and roar, a sound that carried through the tunnels like a living storm. Minos could not bear the cries that rose from beneath his kingdom. He ordered musicians to play day and night in his palace, flutes, drums, lyres, anything to drown the sounds of the monster's grief. But still, the roars found their way to his throne. The gods were not done with their vengeance. For years, Crete's prosperity came at a horrifying cost. When Athens defied King Minos and his son was slain, Minos demanded a tribute. Every 9 years, the city of Athens would send 7 young men and 7 maidens across the sea, their fate to be cast into the labyrinth. As offering, inside those walls, there was no sun, no wind, no sky, only the echo of footsteps and the beating of terrified hearts. They would call out for mercy. They would run through the endless passages until the sound of hooves thundered behind them. Then came the roar. A roar that silenced prayers, that made the torches flicker and die. The Minotaur would charge, unstoppable, his horns glinting in the faint light, his eyes burning like molten gold. Some say he devoured them alive. Others say he wept before the kill. But all agreed on one thing: the labyrinth drank their blood. The people of Crete feared him, but they also pitied him. He was a monster born from divine cruelty, a creature who never chose to be what he was. Sometimes, when the wind passed over the island, the fishermen swore they could hear his voice carried across the sea, a mournful, distant cry, not of anger, but of sorrow. Yet myths are never kind to monsters. Because somewhere in the west, across the Aegean, a prince had heard the tale, a hero with fire in his heart and courage in his soul. His name was Theseus, son of the king of Athens, and he swore before the gods, "I will enter the labyrinth, I will face the beast, and I will end this curse." The tides began to turn. The hunter would soon face the hunted, and in the heart of the maze, a creature born of vengeance would meet his destiny. But the gods, they were watching, and in their eyes, neither man nor beast was innocent. The fall of the beast, the sea, was silent that night when the ship of Athens reached the shores of Crete. 14 souls walked onto the sand. 7 young men and 7 maidens, chosen by fate to enter the labyrinth and never return. But among them stood a figure whose eyes burned not with fear, but with fire. Theseus, Prince of Athens, a man destined to end the curse that had chained 2 kingdoms and a monster alike. When King Minos saw him, he smiled a cold, cruel smile. So, another lamb for the slaughter. You think your courage will save you? Boy, Theseus met his gaze and answered, not courage, your majesty, justice. Yet even heroes cannot walk alone into the jaws of the divine. For in the shadowed corridors of the palace, another destiny was stirring, Ariadne, daughter of Minos, whose heart, unlike her father's, still remembered mercy. Moved by Theseus's bravery, she whispered to him in secret, no man who enters the labyrinth ever finds his way out. But take this, a thread of crimson silk. Tie it to the door behind you, and you may yet return. With the thread in his hand and the weight of a nation on his shoulders, Theseus descended into the labyrinth. The air grew heavy, the walls closed in, the silence was alive. Hours passed, or perhaps days. The maze had no time, no direction, no mercy, and then came the sound. A low, distant rumble. The echo of hooves, the growl of something ancient, half beast, half sorrow. Theseus raised his sword. The shadows shifted, and from the darkness, the Minotaur emerged. He was massive, his horns glinting like blades, his breath steaming in the cold air, his eyes glowing with rage and grief. But beneath the fury, there was something else. Recognition, pain, as if the creature understood the fate the gods had written for them both. With a roar that shook the very stones, the Minotaur charged. Steel met horn, flesh met destiny. They clashed again and again, each strike echoing like thunder through the endless maze. Theseus fought not only for his life, but for every innocent soul devoured before him. And when at last his sword found its mark, the beast staggered, not in anger, but in silence. The Minotaur fell to his knees, his massive hand pressed against the wound, and for a moment his eyes met Theseus's, no longer a monster's gaze, but that of a soul who had suffered too long. He whispered, almost human, end this, and Theseus did. The roar faded. The maze fell silent for the first time in years. The hero followed the crimson thread back to the light of dawn, where Ariadne waited, her eyes filled with tears. But the island of Crete would never be the same. Beneath its stones, the echo of the Minotaur's final breath lingered, not as a cry of terror, but as a memory of what happens when gods play with mortal lives. They say that when the wind blows through the ruins of Knossos, you can still hear it, the low rumble of a distant roar, fading beneath the earth. Not of rage, but of freedom. For even monsters deserve peace, and legends, no matter how dark, never truly die.